Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders Without podcast. They have another incredible human being and another back-to-back, another Deb, wonderful Deb. This time is Deb Tokarz. She's an author with a mission. She's on a wonderful mission, which is striving to create awareness to prevent other women from the horror they experienced, that she experienced. And she's a dedicated advocate for integrative medicine and compounding pharmacies. And a summary, what she's all about is to share the hope that healing is possible. We're going to talk about her story, her journey, and what she's about. She has a tremendous story. Deb, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Appreciate you inviting me.
Very welcome. Pleasure's all mine. So before we start, for people who don't know you, who's Deb?
Well, I'm an author and I am an advocate for targeted nutrient treatment and mental illness. And my previous background, though, is in human resources management. I spent many years working actually for a medical company in human resource management. So I have kind of a good take on industrial psychology and human behavior.
Awesome. Now, as I told you just before we went live, sure, we're going to talk about your amazing professional achievement, but what I'm most interested in is to have a heart-to-heart conversation. So I'm going to start with that. So tell us, what makes you happy?
Oh, actually helping others. I love, I'm going to mention that I wrote a book and I get a lot of readers writing me and I just love giving them encouragement. I'm like a little cheerleader that, you're doing okay. You're going to be fine and help them with their healing process. That's my favorite thing to do.
Love that. Now, what makes you smile?
Oh, smile. Oh, probably my daughter. I
Yeah.
love my daughter.
That's awesome. That's for sure. What makes you come alive?
Being useful. I think I really come alive whenever I have a purpose and something that I'm doing that again is helping others. I'm an Aquarian, so I have that humanitarian.
Oh, yeah. I'm a Libra, so I'm pretty much the same. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that humanitarian.
That's awesome. Now, what makes you sad and angry?
Mostly, I think what makes me angry is, I don't want to say this, but politics definitely does, the news and just people who can't get over themselves. They just believe that there's no other way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have my personal way to do that is I refuse to watch any news. And once someone wise told me, if something is important, you will know about it. So you don't have to spend your time watching the news, because the only thing you're going to get from the news is just going to get, your blood pressure going to the roof, your blood boiling on things you have no control over. So don't even waste your time. Instead, focus on things you can control, which is yourself, your health, your family, your business, things that are productive. So that's been my approach ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I try to stay aware, but I somewhat want to be ignorant too. I just don't want to know.
Exactly. In that case, indeed, ignorance is bliss,
Yeah.
All right. So Deb, what scares you?
Oh, scares me. This is kind of silly, but snakes. I don't know why.
Oh, really?
I have a fear of snakes. I definitely do. Yeah. And in fact, we were in Vegas. I was with my daughter and my husband. We were walking in Vegas and they had one of those people who had the big boa constrictor around their neck.
Oh, wow.
La-di-da, walking along, not noticing. And they were behind me and they said, well, don't tell her. And as I was walking by, I jumped about 5 feet.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I also can't stand them. Okay, so tell us, what is your personal superpower?
I think it's probably my compassion, and some of that comes from being an empath. I really believe that that's my superpower.
Love that.
I'm a good listener.
Yes, that's important. Wow, because listen, we need to. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We need to listen twice as much as we need to speak, because if we needed to speak twice as much as we need to hear, then God would have given us three mouths, one here, maybe one here, whatever. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
All right. So let me ask you now some fun question. You know, when we were kids, say kindergarten or primary school, everybody asks us, so, Deb, what do you want to become when you grow up? What was your answer back then?
Gosh, I don't know that I ever had an answer to that. I'm trying to think. Um, as a kid, I don't really think I had a true thing. Again, I'm an Aquarius, so I just I'm a free spirit. I do know as I was getting older, I really had an interest in psychology. I really wanted to go into psychology, but as a young kid, I didn't have anything that I can think of.
Hmm. And when you were in school, what was your favorite subject?
It definitely was anything to do with psychology. Yeah,
Mm.
I just love learning about, human behavior.
What
Yeah.
uh, what subject you could not stand?
Um, probably, probably math.
Me
I'm not
too.
bad at math, but yeah, what's my favorite? English I
Wow.
like, but not math.
Mm. All right. So now let's move forward from the time you left school to now. Looking back at your path, how would you describe your path? Would you say once you get into one path, it was one line, it was straight sailing, smooth forward all the way? Was it like turns and twists along the way?
No, I was very driven and
Mm,
I was career driven and I knew that I wanted a career and I wanted a career before I had children. I wanted to make sure that I was well established.
mhm,
So I started out as secretary and I worked myself up through the ranks of in human resource management, as I said, and ultimately became a director of human resources. But the drive that I had, it actually was part of what I talk about in my book. It was a little bit of part of my imbalance that I have. I was undermethylated, and it's
mhm.
known to cause you to have that drive.
Love
So
that. Okay. And I'm sure you heard the saying, change your story, change your life. And by story, I mean what we keep on telling ourselves on a daily basis inside ourselves. So when you had to change your story, how did you, to get either to get back on the right track or to change your life? How did you do it? Did you do it through the help of friends, mentors, books? So tell us what you do, what did you do to change your story, to change your life?
well, I have to admit, I'm somewhat of a self-help book junkie.
Hmm. Me too.
I love them, yeah. And so that has helped me a lot along the way. And I did have a mentor whenever I was in corporate that helped
Hmm.
me. Um, but making changes, again, I was just self-driven. I knew, where I wanted to be always. And I still do. I still know the path that I continually want to be healthy and live a joyful life.
That's important. Yeah. Because at the end of it, it's all about being joyful and being healthy. These are the two most important things. Absolutely. Now, tell us about what you're doing. What's your business? What are you up to?
Well, I wouldn't really say I have a business per se,
Mhm.
but I did author a book. It's called ICU Copper.
Mm,
It's about my journey with copper
yes.
toxicity. And it's how a simple biochemical imbalance was misdiagnosed as mental illness. And
Wow.
I tell my story in there because no one needs to suffer as long as I did. And it's a very powerful story. It's a very vulnerable story. It's not an easy read. I
Hmm.
will tell you that because it is talks about my traumas and things that I went through. It's not an easy read, but it. I've had so many people tell me how they appreciate my story, that I was vulnerable because they could relate to it and it helped them not feel alone. So um, it, I mean, I don't know if you want me to tell you a little bit about my
Yes,
journey with.
please. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay. All right. So, well, it starts with in my early 20s, I started birth control pills because I had endometriosis pain. And the birth control pill helped with the pain and the heavy flow I was having, but I went into a sudden despair. And at that time, doctors, they didn't connect the birth control pill with what was happening to me with anxiety and depression.
Hmm.
Instead, it was assumed that it was just stress because I had a lot of life changes. I was newly married. I just became a stepmom. I just moved into an apartment. I had all these things going on in my life. So I just powered on. I, tried to exercise to raise my endorphins and just I lived with that anxiety. And then 10 years later, I had postpartum depression with the birth of my daughter. And And with that postpartum depression, the doctors dismissed it as new mom exhaustion. So
Wow.
again, I didn't take any antidepressants. I just powered on, did the best I could. Exercised. I ate a vegetarian diet, which, by the way, is high in copper and was not good for me. And I did
Really?
not,
Wow.
yeah, I didn't know it at the time. And then 5 years after that, during a second pregnancy, I imploded because I didn't know that the copper that comes in to support a pregnancy, that's what builds the blood vessels to the baby, that copper didn't leave my body from the first pregnancy. It was still there. So when the second pregnancy happened, the copper just layered on top of that. It was building up. And then I had the prenatal vitamins, which have estrogen, which causes copper to retain in the body. I had that on top of the vegetarian diet. All of this was just layering copper on top of my system.
Wow.
And what happened is then doctors prescribed antidepressants. Well, the antidepressants caused me to have higher anxiety, and then I went into OCD. And the
Mm.
OCD came out as fears for my unborn child because I didn't know what this antidepressant was going to do,
Mhm.
fears for my own health, fears just for I didn't know what was happening to me. My life was spiraling out of control, so I had all these fears. And unfortunately, what happened then is I chose not to go through with that pregnancy because of the fears. And that led to a trauma and PTSD. And that is then what I will describe as the next 8 years were what I call antidepressant hell. Doctors just kept giving me one antidepressant after another. And the only thing I got from that was side effects of, 30 pounds of weight gain and feeling like a zombie and
Wow.
restless leg syndrome. For 8 years, I was just beside myself. And none of the doctors had ever done any testing. There was no testing done. They simply prescribed based on my distorted, depressed view of what my symptoms were. And so finally, I got enough determination and I said, just enough to these mind altering drugs. I can't do it anymore. So I stopped taking them. And I went on the internet and I found these doctors who treat depression naturally. And they immediately did testing. And the test results found the root cause was high copper. And they treated me with targeted nutrient treatment to get the excess copper out of my body and to rebalance the other nutrients that got out of balance because the copper was so high. And I mean, 9 years later, I'm symptom free.
Wow. Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the reason why I tell my story. I mean, copper, I'm relating it to estrogen because estrogen causes copper to retain in the body. So it is more prevalent in women because of the estrogen connection, but men can also have high copper. And with men, it presents itself as anger and violent behavior.
Mm.
And there's an awesome study done by a Dr. William Walsh where he went into the prison systems and he actually tested the most violent of criminals, and they all had high copper. And
Wow.
if you get it, his book is called Nutrient Power. It's a great book. It's really kind of highly technical, but he talks about in there how your neurotransmitters are actually made up of nutrients, and he explains how copper affects the body. So yeah, I had no idea that that copper was actually disrupting my neurotransmitters and causing all of these symptoms. And when these doctors told me this, they said, "There's nothing wrong with your brain. You have a simple biochemical imbalance." And
Wow.
they corrected it. So that's where I am today, and that's why I tell my story. It's full of a lot of descriptives of what it feels like when your life is spiraling out of control. I also explain depression and how it felt to me for those who have never had depression. And like I said, it's a book that I'm trying to get in a lot of people's hands to show them that healing is possible, and that
Absolutely.
and I don't have anything against mainstream medicine. I just want to say that. I mean, all of the state-of-the-art equipment and surgery and the hospital setting and all the research, it's awesome. And it has its purpose. But we're all biochemically unique. And it's so important that we look at us as individuals and rather than treating with one size fits all medication.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
So the copper, are there any, from your experience in your research and all that, are there any foods that, does it matter whether we're men or women, we should try to stay away from that can over time just build that up? Or any tips you have on that?
Well, it won't build up unless you have a problem with copper. I mean, because there's
Mhm.
a lot of copper products out there that people they claim they're really healthy, and they are for people that don't have a problem with copper. The issue comes in is with women if they're estrogen dominant and
Mm.
if they can't metabolize the copper. And there's about 50% of women that are estrogen dominant, and then there's many that can't metabolize it like me.
Mhm.
And all that means is that the copper, when it comes into your body, if it has nowhere to go, it doesn't know where it's supposed to go. It becomes a free radical and it just floats around in your body. So it's only if you can't metabolize the copper. And so, it may not be a problem for you, but it's for many women, especially, I always say if you've had postpartum depression, you should probably get tested for copper.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what are some common products that we use that have a lot of copper, just for information, just for out of
Well,
curiosity, for example?
yeah, copper's in so many things. I mean, it's in water, it's in jewelry, it's actually swimming pools and hot tubs are sanitized with copper.
Wow.
Um, it's in pesticides. Copper's in a lot of things. So yeah, I'm very cautious about the copper that I put in my body because I do have a problem with high copper. Um, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and there, I just named some of the things that happened to me. I had anxiety, depression, and fatigue because the copper was loading into my adrenal glands, causing the fatigue. But a lot of women will have things like fibromyalgia because it'll zap their nervous system, or they'll have uh, migraines and yeast infections, insomnia. There's just a whole, I mean, I've got a whole list here of things that symptoms from copper. So
So
that's
what
why it's really important for someone to get tested and to check out their own unique biochemistry and how it's affecting their body.
what type of women would be most most vulnerable to copper? Is there any specific age range, a specific I don't know, any category or demography that are more
No,
affected by it, or
no, actually not. I mean, any woman can. It's a matter of how her makeup is, her biochemistry is made up.
mm,
I mean, it can be, something that comes from, genetics. It can be, it can come through the placenta, through birth. My daughter actually, because of me, she has high copper, and
wow.
her copper symptoms come out as stomach issues.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it really isn't. It all depends on your, chemical makeup.
Okay. So in your book, you share your story, your journey, and all that. Does your book also contain some tips on people how to tackle that and basically help them to overcome that if they were to be having higher doses of copper inside of their body?
Yeah, unfortunately, like I said, mainstream doctors,
Hmm.
they don't test for or treat copper because they only treat they only test with that they can treat with a pharmaceutical, and you can't treat copper with a pharmaceutical.
Hmm.
It's only treated with nutrient therapy because that's what helps get the copper out and rebalance the other nutrients. So um, it has to be a natural doctor, a neuropath, or someone who specializes in biochemical imbalances.
So is there any way for someone to know whether they have a higher dose of copper inside their body by themselves, doing some, I don't know, some tests themselves, or they have to go in and see an actual doctor? I mean, a doctor that specializes in that.
No, you have to be tested. It's a blood
Hmm.
test, it's a
Oh,
urine test,
okay.
and some doctors do hair analysis, but really
Mm,
it's the blood test. And it has to be a doctor that knows how to read it because it's not just the copper that we're concerned about, it's the percent free that one that's floating around as a free radical.
And if left untreated, what are the most severe consequences of that?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you've heard stories in the news about these women who have drowned their children or killed their children, killed their babies.
Wow.
Those are women who have had high levels of copper and went into psychosis. And when I first met my doctors, they basically told me, "You're lucky to be alive." And I
Wow.
tearfully knew that. I knew that. I didn't reach that point of psychosis, but it can happen.
And you
And
mentioned some, sorry, go ahead.
no, that's fine. Go ahead.
Now, and you mentioned something earlier that really caught my attention. You said, especially in men, that can translate into higher than normal, levels of violence and things like that. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
rage and all that. Okay. Wow. So
Mhm.
if you see someone that is ultra violent, then you might want to tell them, hey, you might want to check yourself for copper. That's your
Yeah.
reason.
My
Wow.
thought process every time.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we were to start testing everyone that commits a crime, especially in the prison population, we're to do testing on them, that could drastically reduce the level of violence in society.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. But instead, we treat with the pharmaceuticals, and I don't know if I said this, but um, antidepressants actually make anxiety worse in high copper
Absolutely.
individuals.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
So you have a book. Your book is currently available online on Amazon or places like
Um,
that.
it's not on Amazon yet. It's just on my website at debtokarz.com. Um,
Okay.
I'm I'm looking to get it out there on Amazon. I just haven't done that yet. So
All right.
right
Do
now
you have it in Kindle version or physical version only so far?
it's coming.
All
It's coming.
right. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So once you do, let me know. I'll definitely help you promote it and share the link on my social media, because I agree with you. That's something that needs to be shared wide and far to as many, not just women but also men I'm sure can benefit from it. And I'll definitely make sure to get a copy myself, not only for myself but for my sisters, because it's all about helping and helping spread the word.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. Um, yeah, and that's why whenever I decided to join this, be a co-author in or a part of this multi-author book, Align Leaders, it was just like a nice seemingly um, blend into where I have been healing. Because when I got all the heavy metal out of my body, I just became more alert and more aware, and I created this awareness that, and I started doing more things uh, to align myself. And so that next book ties in very nicely with my healing journey.
So are you trying now with this book to launch, to start a movement, even a business, to help other women that might be suffering from that or affected by that?
Um, I just get my story out there as much as I
Mhm.
can, and I really like talking about the healing process and the things that you can do to help heal, because um, stress can cause copper to rise. And so I write in my blogs, I write about, how to
Mhm.
reduce stress, and I try to give information on things like that. And I'm actually writing a second book, a sequel to this, on
Wow.
the next step of my healing journey and the things that I've done um, to help the nutrients. Because I mean, we all know there's no miracle pill. You have to help anything that you're taking. And I had to help those nutrients. And one of the things I did is everything possible, try to reduce stress. And so I started doing yoga and meditation. And then I'm telling you, meditation just opened up a whole new world for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. And so you mentioned something that I'm curious about. You mentioned you're part of the multi-authored books. How was your experience with that so far?
It's been great. Yeah. There's some really awesome women in that group, and just
Mm-hmm.
into their master classes. I mean, they have a wealth of information, and it's wonderful because it's global. You're hearing different perspectives, and it's a really neat group to be a part of.
How did you find out about that group? How did you connect with Mary?
I actually, I knew Claire Ateo since I know you had her on your,
Yes, I had
yeah,
her. Yeah, yeah. Amazing lady. Yes.
she's awesome. And
Oh
I
yeah.
have, yeah, I've been friends with her and we were talking about it and she's like, I think this might be good for you. And I'm like, I think so too. Fits in
Wow.
nicely. So, yeah,
That's amazing. Wow. I'm even thinking, I've been blessed with having 70 people on my podcast so far. We're all amazing human being, not just successful in the business, but as I said, incredibly hearts of gold. And I'm thinking right now myself of writing my own multi-authored book and inviting some of these people that have been on my podcast to share their story about building impactful businesses and making a difference in the world. I'll definitely do that once I reach maybe 100, but then the problem might be more of a challenge. If you have 100 amazing people, how the hell do you go about selecting 20 of them? You know,
right. Yeah, yeah,
the only option would be maybe make volume one for the first 20, volume two for the next second, and so on and so forth. Make like a entire, collection. Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Now, the theme of this podcast is building impactful business and having an impact. Like for me, as I told you, I'm an e-commerce guy. I'm launching a product soon on Kickstarter, and for each unit I will sell, I will be donating a pair of eyeglasses to someone in need who cannot afford it. So, what would you say for you, Deb? What cause are you most passionate about?
um, my my ultimate passion is to create an awareness about targeted nutrient treatment, and I'm a voice to that. I think it needs a voice. I'm a little frustrated that alternative medicine is not covered under medical plans because
Mhm.
it's not alternative. It's, you know, it's needed and it should be standing right next to mainstream medicine. So I'm a voice for that, and I actually, I'll do speaking engagements anywhere that anybody wants to hear about copper because I've learned so much about it. And I will be speaking at my doctor's conference on October 9th.
Wow,
It's Integrative Medicine Summit. And I will be telling my story and how I healed and then introducing the doctors that helped me heal. So I just like to be a voice that there is something other than antidepressants that can help you heal from,
absolutely.
because so many people they they give up hope, and they'll either stop
Hmm.
taking their antidepressants because they're not working, or they'll stop taking them because they can't afford them, or because they're making them worse. And and
Absolutely.
and I should make a disclaimer here: if you are taking antidepressants, please don't stop taking them. You should not stop taking them because
Yeah,
they do work for some, and there is a transition process, a safe transition process. So I would not stop taking them, but look, there might be an alternative that will work better for you. That the beauty of the nutrients that I love is there was no side effects like I had with the antidepressants.
what would be for you the best case scenario? Would it be maybe partnering up with doctors and going and making speeches, say at, I don't know, wherever you can, and women's group, or even, so what, tell us, in an ideal world, what would be the best case scenario for you? What is your ultimate dream if there was no limitation, no restriction, and you could be, I, I don't know if allowed is the right word, but if you were able to go and bring your message to the world, what would be the best case scenario, the ideal world? What would be your dream?
Well, my dream and what I've been working for is, I've actually written to a lot of my local legislation, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm promoting the fact that we need legislation to change the fact that we can't get reimbursement uh,
Mm-hmm.
for alternate medicine. So that would be my dream, to continue to be a um, uh, what's I can't think of the word, but um, someone who can,
Ambassador, a voice, the
yeah,
face, something like that. Yeah. Okay.
a
Mm.
lobbyist. That's the word I was thinking. A
Okay.
lobbyist for that is what I was
Mm.
thinking of. Yeah, because I really believe that we need other choices, because we are
Absolutely.
biochemically unique. We need other choices.
And in terms of cost, how does the cost of getting that kind of treatment compared to mainstream treatment? Are they the same? Are they cheaper, more expensive?
Well, the ingredients, from what I understand, the ingredients for the nutrients is actually cheaper
Hmm.
for insurance companies, but it costs more for the individual to get it because it doesn't go through the insurance company.
Sure. Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, honestly, this is a kind of message that definitely deserves to be spread far and wide. I'll do whatever I can to help you spread it in my own limited, humble way. But yeah, no, you're doing something beautiful. I love that. And yeah, that's amazing. Now, let me ask you now some fun questions. Um, Imagine that you add a time machine right now and you could go back in time and sit face to face with your 18-year-old self. What would be the first piece of advice you would give to your 18-year-old self?
Um, Probably just be yourself. Yeah, be yourself. Yeah, um, yeah, I don't think that I would change much.
I agree with you because everything that happens to us, it's meant to happen for us to grow. You know,
Yeah,
the path
yeah.
that, even though at time it hurts or it's painful or, you know, unpleasant, but we are meant to go through those to grow. That's the next. It, every obstacle is a stepping stone to the next, so we can become the person that we are meant to be or we're destined to be. At least that's my opinion, my experience so far, because I went through a lot of crap so far, but I would not change any of that. I would not change any of that, especially in the most toughest part. That's when you have the most meaningful growth, personal growth.
Hmm. Yeah, I have to say, the trauma that I went through and giving up
Hmm.
on wanting pregnancy, I mean, that was really hard for
Sure.
me. I had a lot of guilt and
Absolutely.
I was just a lot of shame. I just felt
Hmm.
awful for so long. And then as I started feeling better and getting help, that's whenever I realized, this was for a reason. And as much
Absolutely.
as much as it hurts, I would have never gone as far as I've gone and developed, where I have developed into and learned about natural medicine if it wasn't for that experience.
Exactly. So everything is meant to happen, and we have a tendency to, whenever something bad happens to us, is always whine and say, "Why is this happening to us? Why did I deserve to get this?" But instead, we just need to ask the right question, because the power of question, asking the right question, is phenomenal. So instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? Why?" So we should need to ask, "What is this trying to teach me? What is the lesson here for me to learn?" And when you
Mhm.
do that, you switch like a 180 and you become a different person.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
And that
Totally.
also helps you overcome the challenge, the obstacle, no matter how painful they may be at the time, because you get to see them from a higher perspective, and then you say, okay, that makes sense. Now I understand.
Hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Now, do you have your own podcast?
I don't. I do not.
Why not?
um, well, to be honest with you, I really just like to write.
Okay.
I like to write, and I don't even like doing all of the promotion on social media and
Mm-hmm.
do that. It just takes away from what I really like doing. So I do what I like to do, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I would. I don't mind
Okay.
being on a podcast. I just,
All right. So imagine now that today, Deb, you have a very successful podcast and you have the most special guest in the world, which is yourself. So you're interviewing yourself on your podcast. What would be the first question you want to ask yourself? But I don't want you to think too much. What is the first question that comes to your mind?
oh, that's such a hard question. um, I, I, I guess it would be, what brings you joy?
Mm,
Yeah.
awesome. Now, let me see. One question I love asking people is, what is the smallest thing that you've done in your business and your life that has had the biggest and most powerful impact so far?
The smallest thing that I've done. Um,
that has had the biggest impact, the biggest positive impact?
I think it's been um, the smallest thing. Well,
Like, for example, I can give you my example. For me, the
okay.
smallest decision I've taken has had the biggest, most powerful impact has been starting this podcast, because that has allowed me to connect with incredible human beings, and has opened so many doors, so many incredible opportunities. Even though my channel is pretty new and is still very small, but I've been connected with incredible people. So that for me has had the most powerful impact, the biggest ROI probably ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess writing my book probably would be
Hmm.
the, I don't consider it small because it was a big venture
Hmm.
for me to do, but
Sure.
it had the most powerful impact. And
Hmm.
it's really funny when I wrote my book, and I had told all my girlfriends about it. They were like, "What? We didn't know you had depression. We had no idea you had depression."
That's the
Eh,
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was a master at hiding it, as most people are. I was a
Oh,
master at hiding
yes.
depression. And so they had no idea. And when they read my book, they were like, "Oh my gosh, we had no idea. Why didn't you come to us?" And it's like, I was trying to deal with it on my own. And actually, I was trying to go to so many doctors that weren't helping me. I so yeah, that I think that had the most impact is writing my book. And writing my book, it it wasn't something that I just said one day, "Oh, I need to share this. I need to do this." The universe actually came to me and said, everywhere I looked, I was seeing these words, "Tell your story, tell your story." It was like
Yes.
just coming at me. And so one day I got my journals out where I would write in when I was feeling depressed. And I just started writing. And the chapters came to me and words came to me and everything just like came to me. I truly believe my book was divinely guided because everything just came to me.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Wow. Are you a reader yourself?
Oh, I love to read. Absolutely love to read. Yeah. I kind of confess that I'm a self-help book junkie.
And speaking of that, what would you say has been the book that you read over the past year that's had the biggest impact on your life?
Oh, yikes. Oh, there's so many. I'm not going to be able to think off the top of my head like that because I read so many books.
Hmm.
Um,
Or even the book that has had the biggest impact so far on your life that you will always refer to it?
um, well, off the top of my head, I'm not going to come up with something, but for
Okay.
a while I was really into Joel Osteen, and I was reading a lot of his books, and then Brene Brown and her inspiration. But I do tend to read like a lot of technical books too about medical things. And um, so off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of anything that's going to be
Hmm.
the number one book.
Okay. Um, Let me see. Do you have any? I mean, we can talk for hours. It's a fascinating topic, but we'll have to wrap this up soon. So, do you have any parting tips for anyone listening to this, or anyone curious about whether they how they can tackle their own copper issue, if they even have copper issue themselves? Do you have any tips on that for anyone listening? Any parting tips?
Um, I would say if you're feeling you have depression and you're not feeling better with antidepressants, then it's time to like look at something else that might help you. I have when I gave a talk when I first wrote my book, I had so many women come up to me afterwards and say to me, "I think I might have copper. I've been feeling really tired and exhausted, and I've been feeling this way or that way, and I'm just out of sorts. Do you think I could have copper?" And I'm like, it's possible. You need to get tested. So I would say testing is definitely something that I would try and see because it could be maybe not copper, but something else that's out of balance, just enough that's causing your symptoms. But again, I get very frustrated with the fact that doctors just hand out antidepressants so easily.
Hmm.
uh, Really need a better way of testing. And I love testing the test results that I get from my doctor. it shows me how I'm doing. I know if I'm not doing well because I can see in the test results that, oh, I need to do a little bit better. My copper's a little bit high. And a great example of that is when my dad passed a couple of years ago. I had a tremendous amount of stress, and stress raises copper, as I said. And when I went into my doctor's office, they said, "So what's going on in your life?" And I said, "Why?" And they're like, "Well, what's happening?" And I said, "Well, my dad passed, and I had less." And they're like, we know. Here's your test results." So um, I knew it because I wasn't feeling, in balance. I knew it, but they knew it before I did from my test results. So I love that.
Okay, so you mentioned that some of the symptoms of that having copper is you feel tired. I feel a lot of times tired. I feel a lot of times, uh, lack of energy and sometimes falling asleep quite easily, especially when I'm trying to work. Would you say that those could be some symptoms of copper or something else?
Yeah, I mean, copper can load into your adrenal glands and cause the fatigue. It can cause insomnia. I've got a whole list of things of copper symptoms from, um, well, weight gain and an inability to lose weight is really for women because estrogen,
Hmm.
estrogen can, cause the weight gain. But I mean, there's a lot of female related things like
Hmm.
PCOS, endometriosis, and severe PMS, and
Hmm.
depression, anxiety, panic disorder,
Right.
sensitivity to food, sensitivity to, to jewelry, headaches.
All
So
right.
there's a lot of things that is related to copper toxicity.
You referred to a list of the symptoms. Is that list available somewhere on your website so that other people can see it?
Yes, yeah, it is on my website. I have a whole little just an explanation about copper and how it
Hmm.
comes out, and I explain copper in kind of detail. So yeah, it's available there.
Awesome. And that's a perfect segue. So if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
At my website at debtokarz.com. I'm also on Instagram at Deb Tokarz author, and also the same on Facebook at Deb Tokarz author.
All right. Awesome. So I'll put that all of that in the show notes. So let me know when your book is available on Amazon. I'll also put it in the show notes after that, even if it's a few weeks after, that's fine, because that's something that I want people to see. And yeah, listen, you're on a wonderful mission. I love what you're doing. I'm always here to support people that are doing good for humanity and for helping others and sharing their stories to not only to help but to inspire. And you're a fine example of that. You're a prime example of that. So keep shining your light. I salute you. You're a true leader with a heart. And God bless. Stay safe, and we'll definitely keep in touch. So
Um,
have a wonderful day, Deb. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Very welcome. Take care.